Want more positivity in your life? Subscribe, turn on notifications, follow us, and all that techie stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, share, or give us a thumbs up. We are grateful to have you hanging out with us at Matt Logan Speaks.
With me today, I have special featured guest Cassandra Pappas. Cassie is a woman living in long-term recovery. Which means she has not had any illicit drugs or alcohol in her system since August of 2015. Cassie is a single mom. However, she is newly engaged, and she is currently going to school to obtain licensures to get her licensed alcohol drug counseling degree. And Cassie still continues to share her experience, strength, and hope throughout the program with other women in the program. And today she has become this woman that has just flourished. But that is Cassie's story to tell, even though she has had some great trials and tribulations at being so young. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Cassie Pappas. Hi, Cassie. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I have had the opportunity to know you since you first came into the walls of AA, and I have watched you grow so much. So with that, the audience will see you grow as well. So if you could tell us a little bit about your journey, starting from the very worst and moving to present day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I always like to start when I talk about my story is being a child. My first memory was when my parents were still together, and they were arguing, and there was some hands thrown at each other, and my parents ended up splitting that day, and I was carried to a motel when the sun was coming up, and that's the last thing I remember of them being together. Ever since then, my parents were divorced, and they both had other significant others, pretty stable and consistent other significant others in their life that helped raise me. I always felt like I didn't belong, and I was a social butterfly all throughout elementary school and middle school. I had friends from every different kind of clique that there was. I had friends that liked to read a lot of books and do good on their tests, and friends that didn't care about their homework, and friends that loved to scrapbook, and ones that played sports, ones that wore lots of dark clothing, all sorts of different friends. And I still just never felt like I had a place in this world. So there was that throughout my whole life. I had really good grades. I did well in school. I mean, I was never in sports, but I like to stay active outside of school. Lots of riding bike with my sisters growing up, and my stepsisters. And then in 6th grade, my brother died of a heroin overdose. That I remember when I found out, I dropped to my knees and I was crying. And that was the only time I ever cried about it for probably 7 years, until finally I just started talking about it and crying. And yeah. Then in high school, in middle school, I swore I was never going to drink. I was never going to do drugs. Both of my homes had lots of addiction in them, and I swore I was never going to be that way. And then in high school, freshman year, I began to smoke weed every once in a while and drink every here and now again. And then it was slowly, but then all of a sudden it just progressed. First it was once a month we would go out and party, me and different groups of friends, and then it was every other weekend, and then it was every weekend, and then it was one night after school we would go get into trouble, and then all of a sudden it was just the beginning of 10th grade, and I was full bore ahead, skipping classes. And it started with just skipping 1 or 2 classes in the morning to go use before school, and then it was I'll come back for the second half of the day. And I just felt like I owed nobody an explanation for why I was living the way I was living. I remember the specific afternoon. I was going to John Marshall High School, and I had become truant. And so they contacted my father and they said, you and your daughter need to come and meet with us after school. And your daughter is going to be put into truancy. I don't even know what that looks like, because I left that day at lunch and my dad called me and said, you need to get back to school by at least 3 o'clock, which is when the day ended, and be there for this meeting. And I turned my cell phone off and I didn't go home for like 2 weeks. And that was like the downslide. I went to 3 different schools that year. I moved back in with my mom, who I hadn't lived with in 4 or 5 years. And ultimately, I dropped out of high school and didn't get my GED till 2012. So 2010 was when I was in 10th grade and dropped out of regular kind of every day, 5 days a week with teachers and stuff like that. So yeah, there's that. And that was when my meth addiction kind of took over. I did any drug and every drug that I could. I was broken and I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't know who to talk to, so I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to my sisters for years, and my nieces and nephews that I had once had like a close relationship with. When people tried to reach out to me through social media, because I got my dad ended up not paying my phone bill after I stopped answering it and turning it off. So yeah, I didn't have a cell phone, and so when people would try and reach out to me, I just ignored everybody. When I turned right after I turned 18, I got arrested. That started my journey in the probation, and every 3 to 4 months, I would end up back in jail. I think I'd been arrested 9 times. And every time I swore I was done. I was like, I am not going to smoke weed. I'm not doing meth again. I'm not drinking. And every time I didn't change anything besides, actually I didn't change anything until the last time. I was like, okay, whatever you guys say, I will do. I kind of threw my hands up in the air and just like surrendered. And that was after coming out of custody. That ultimately, it led to that. I got pregnant right before I turned 20, and I knew that I didn't want to raise a child in the life that I lived. And so I was a lifer, and people that I used to use with would tell me that all the time. They were older than me, all of them, and they would tell me, Cassie, you're a lifer. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm ride or die. Like, I'm never getting clean. Like, I couldn't see my life without drugs or alcohol. And so I knew that when I got pregnant, I was like, well, I'm not having an abortion, because I don't believe in that personally. I mean, for my situation, because I was engaging in the sexual activity, which is fine. And I was like, but I'm not going to raise this child in the life that I live. And so I was planning, like, I was going to give this child up for adoption. When I had her, I was incarcerated. I got arrested when I was 7 months pregnant. And I gave birth to her one day, right? And I kind of just like fell in love. It was like this weird experience. I can't even like tell you what it was. You know, I had this name picked out that I was going to use, and it was like just everything changed when I looked at her, when I held her the first time. And I don't think in that moment I knew, but now that I can look back at the bigger picture, I'm like, my life changed that day. And that still didn't change my substance abuse, because I stayed clean for 2 weeks, and then I ended up on another bender. I went to go talk to my probation officer, and she was like, well, I have to put you in jail, and I'm only going to release you if you do this and this. I want you to move out of these towns that I was living in, and I want you to go stay with your dad, and you have to go get a Rule 25 assessment. That's kind of like a pivoting point, which isn't even my clean date, because that would have been 2014. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. What have you found, though, since, obviously being so young, having your child, the challenges with that, unreal. And I know that she has some special needs herself. So, what got you through, what got you through some of that? I mean, and then what made you decide that, you were going to pursue your, the education piece of this? And, when did you really, really, though, come to the conclusion that, this is enough? It's time to grow up. It's time to be some sort of a mother to my daughter who has special needs in herself,
So, right when I relapsed, she was about 2 weeks old, and I found out she had a cleft palate, and they didn't find it in the hospital. And I think, looking back, I think that's what kind of sent me over the edge, and I just didn't think I had what it took to take care of her. But when I went to jail that day for 72 hours, I felt, and I knew that I didn't want to let her go, and I wanted to be her parent, but I knew that if I was going to do that, I had to live a different life. And, so that's what got me there, and that motivated me. Not to mention, all the feelings that come with hating yourself and all the shame and the guilt. It was just so heavy. And I think I really wanted to die. I didn't really want to live, but I wasn't going to kill myself. It wasn't suicidal, if you will. Yeah. So that first year after I got out of jail, after 3 days, my sisters took my daughter and took care of her while I was incarcerated. And I moved back in with my dad. It took me about a year of balancing a day or two of work here and there, and making sure that my daughter got to her doctor appointments. That first year I got a car and insurance and just enough money to pay those things. And then they were going to close my child protection case, and I was like, I really need to take the next step and move out. So before they closed my case, they helped me get a place, and it was a month later, I drank. So it was 3 months later, I drank one night. And that was August 15th of 2015. And I had been going to meetings, and I had a sponsor because I heard him say that, but I wasn't working the steps. And, when I was at the meetings, I was this person, but then when I left, I was another person. So that night when I drank, I was laying in my bed, and I was the whole world was crumbling down, and I just didn't see how or what my life could ever be any different. And I knew that I didn't want to be this person. I called the sponsor that I had, and she came over the next morning, August 16th, and took me to a meeting. And from then on, we met 2-3 times a week, and we worked the steps. And then that's been my pivoting point. I started waitressing somewhere in between, right when I got my own place, and it was a year and a half in, and I was super young still, 22, 23, and my body was tired, and I started thinking about my future and how I was going to provide and be this role model for my child, and because I knew that what she seen in me was something that was going to be important for her. So I was well, how am I going to give her insurance, and how am I going to have a retirement and not be breaking my back just to make enough to put food on the table? So that's why I decided to go talk to someone at the workforce center, actually, about what I could do. And they suggested maybe taking this test that would help you figure out what you wanted to do. So I figured, what the heck, and so that was summertime, and then the next fall I was in school, and I've been in school since then. So yeah, that's kind of what led me to wanting to pursue an education. It kind of took me the first year, and I was not very I wasn't full-time at all in school, and I'd taken 3 classes, I think, by the end of the first year, and I was I'll declare alcohol and drug counseling as my major. and now I'm getting ready to graduate and start a practicum. And I'm super blessed to have made it this far. It's just been unreal. I'm in the Honor Society. This year I've gotten 2 scholarships just for this fall. And I'm like, I could have never imagined my life being this way. What I wanted when I decided that I wanted a different life was that I wanted to have this little car, that was somewhat reliable. It was okay if I had to figure out, mechanics every couple months on it. I wanted just a job to put food on the table so that I could have a place to live with my daughter. And my life has turned out to be so much more than that. I can't even, I would have never dreamt that this is what I would have got from getting clean and working on myself. So,
well, and I also know too, you did a lot of work prior to with recoveries happening. You were also privileged to do the same thing that I was doing and going to the coaching academy. And I know that you did quite a bit of work there doing that. I know that adulting is hard, kind of to juggle so many things, and I know that you kind of stepped back from that and pursuing the schooling full time. And just the life that you're providing for your daughter has just been amazing. I also know in the meantime there you are newly engaged.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work. It really is. And now with going on to, pursuing that educational piece, are you looking to go even further, manage your own practice? I mean, be an assessor full time. There are so many different areas in the road of recovery where we can be a service to people. There's the counseling piece, there's the assessor piece, there's going out within the community, the peer recovery specialist. Where do you see yourself?
I'm not really sure exactly where I see myself. I really like working with people on their recovery. I'm excited to do my practicum in January and learn more about what the roles feel like and look like actually in action, because I think you can only imagine so much of it. Hypothetically, I would love to do my own practice someday. Just right now, realistically, I think I just need to get my associates, take a little break, and then go get my bachelor's degree. And then we'll see where I'm at then, and I'm just okay with right now, just getting through right now.
And I know from the past, not too real long ago, you had to bury your mom. I know that was incredibly hard. I know that you struggled through that quite a bit, and wonderful that you were still, despite all the issues surrounding that, nothing worse than burying your parent quite young, and then still maintaining the schooling, maintaining being a mom to Bella, and trying to work, trying to pay for your mom's funeral. I mean, and still hang on to your sobriety. That's tough, being that single mom, and I'm so proud of you because I know how much you struggled during that. And, and I've watched you grow within the program. Like I said, I was there when you first entered the halls. What do you do for the newcomer today?
I still answer my phone and reach out. I share my experience with them, and I just keep it honest with them that I don't know everything, and all I have for them when it comes to the steps is this is what was done for me or told to me and suggested to me, and this is what I can do for you. I'm human, so don't put me on a pedestal. And I think what you were kind of concluding on before about my mom and everything else, I'm just gonna backtrack a minute. I always use this with my newcomers too, or people that I that are, asking questions, at least, is that it wasn't hard. It's a lifestyle change, I don't hang out with people who use and drink, and all my friends and my support they have no hidden motives that I know of anyway. Really pure, you know what I mean? They're honest, genuinely and honestly, authentically concerned and want what's best for me, and they will tell me the truth when I need to hear the truth, and ask me if I need some diaper cream if I'm sitting in my poop too long about stuff, and I think empathizing and being present for people who are wanting to get clean is what was done for me, and so that's what I try to return back. I don't know how to help people. I just have learned from other people helping me. I don't know. Yeah,
we've always been told in the program that in order to keep it, we have to give it away. And that's huge. And sometimes that's also very hard, because real life happens and we get overwhelmed. And when that person is asking us, hey, can you give me a ride to a meeting? And you've just got done working a 16-hour shift, and the last thing you want to do is give that person a ride.
Right.
However, and I go through that myself, where it's like, oh, I'm just tired, I want to go home. However, I do realize I have to stay vigilant to that, and I do have to give it away. And I feel so much better once I do that. And, and I've seen you in that position where you've been tired, and I've heard people like, hey, Cassie, can you give me a ride? Yep. Get in. Right. So I'm just so proud of how far you've come, and everything that you've had to go through. Recovery is not easy. We have to work at it every day. We have to be selfish about it. We're not going to be any good to anybody else if we don't take care of ourselves. And that's a lot of self-care. That's a lot of well-briety. That's a lot of higher power being behind us. And I've had the pleasure of watching you do it for years. So thank you so much for all the contributions that you have done. I have watched you approach many new people come into the program, and you are that person that saves them. You are that first line that, they're going to come back because they got to meet somebody like you. And there's nothing worse than when you first walk into the program, you're already scared, you're frightened. And, like you said, you don't know how I'm going to live my life one day without drugs and alcohol, much less, now I have to come into a meeting where I don't know anybody. So I am so grateful to you, and I was grateful when I was going through it, that there was somebody like you that was at the front door willing to shake my hand and say, welcome, we're happy you're here. Please wait for the miracle to start.
Yeah.
Keep coming back. So I appreciate so much that you have done. Keep being strong. Keep doing what you're doing, and continue to thrive. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Sherry, for having me. It's an honor.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of Addiction Abuse Recovery, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sure you did, as I did. I want you to know that if you want to follow along, just go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Apple Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just search out Matt Logan Speaks. We have all kinds of great content for you. Hit the notifications button so that when something new comes up, you're the first to know. Have a great day.